Okay, today I'm gonna do some more watercolor painting, but I just got some gouache. This is Winsor & Newton. This is the student grade stuff because I'm not sure if I'm gonna like it yet. I've been told that the white is the main color that you need. I wanted to try some sort of more opaque looking bright areas in my watercolor painting, so I've heard gouache is a good way to do that, so figured I'd try it out. So I was thinking about doing two paintings at once here because my first plan is to do a very heavy dark wash and then paint like a street lamp on top of it and then use the gouache to back for some kind of highlight colors and some sort of bright areas. But I just realized that that would mean I'd have to paint not on the watercolor block, and I didn't really prepare something else, so I think I'm just going to do the one painting. So I think what I'm going to do first is get a nice kind of evening blue color. So not too much ultramarine, a little bit more cerulean blue, and then maybe some Payne's gray and some crimson. Something a little bit like this, except I want it to be a little bit more blue. And a little bit darker. That's kind of what I'm looking for there. And so I'm going to go ahead and wet the paper. I don't have to get too wet on this one because I'm not going to do a whole lot of blending initially. I'm just going to get kind of a flat wash going on. I just kind of want to wet the paper so that the paint flows a little easier. I do want this to be pretty saturated though, so I don't want to get too much water in there. I'm going to be adding kind of a lot of paint. I'll let that soak in for a second. I'm going to try to mix up a little bit more of this color. It's like I said, I want it to be pretty concentrated. All right. So I think what I'm going to do here is maybe leave it a little bit lighter at the top. So I'm going to kind of come in from maybe about here. And just kind of get sort of a uniform looking wash up to the top. Then I'll kind of let it get a little bit more subtle at the top. I'm going to add some more at the bottom too. I think I'm going to add like a bit of paint, just like plain Payne's gray here to the bottom. Maybe a little bit of brown in there too. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Now more of this. Okay, now I'm going to make this quite a bit more. That was more purple than I wanted. There's some blue in there. It's better. I want this to kind of read like sort of night. Really trying to test that, how well the gouache is going to help me out as far as adding some lights on top of darks. Sorry, I'm adjusting my light there. It's blinding me. This paper is pretty wet, so it's got a nice sheen on it from the light. It's keeping me from seeing. Okay, so it's getting to the point where it's drying a little bit too much for me to keep everything blended and even. So I think that means it's time to stop touching him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to grab some arches while this dries because I want to put a pretty kind of wet on dry sort of looking tree that's going to take up most of this area here. So before I do that, I guess I'm going to go ahead and add in my bottom. So I'm going to add in some like kind of intense green and some sort of really dark blue. Okay, that's about the green I wanted. Now the blue. I want like a really kind of gray blue. Yeah, that's good there. Add that in over here. And I think I want that a little bit grayer in there. Add some Payne's gray to it. Yeah, that's pretty close to what I wanted. I'm going to go ahead and add that green in. And add some black for the contrast there. Sort of want this back here to be like a fence or something. Add some of that into the green too. I want some more green in there. Okay. Now I think I'm gonna hit this again. So I'm gonna re-wet it so it's nice and even. Try not to get too much water in the section I just painted. Okay. Add some more of that blue color. I haven't done any of this before, trying to add like a really dark coat to start with. So it's really kind of throwing me because it's, you know, obviously it's watercolor is going to dry a lot lighter. So I'm trying to get it really dark. Really dark for watercolor, obviously, not dark for not dark in general. This is pretty washed out compared to something like an oil painting, but for watercolor painting, it basically I can't paint very many colors over top of that. We'll see if this bites me or not. Okay, that's pretty close to where I want it, I think. I'm going to create a little bit of light at the bottom. I'm going to add like a tiny bit of brown in there too. Just like kind of bring it down to sort of an earthier looking color at the bottom. Maybe indicate that there's some distant stuff back there. And to give it a little bit of separation between these two blues so that that part doesn't look like the sky, it looks like something different. And now I got to do something about all this white here. think what I'm going to do is make it like a really washed out green, or maybe not sure. I mean, this is the bright spot that I want to be kind of like lit up by the light, because I'm going to put a light right here. Not sure quite yet what I'm going to do there. I'm thinking we do go like kind of a pale green. Add a little bit of sap green to it. That was a little bit too yellow. Cool that down a bit. Okay. Just gonna this might go very badly. We're gonna do it anyway. Just gonna glaze right over top of this. Okay. Now I want to add some kind of shadows over here. And I think I'm going to use more of this color to do that. Something like that. And then I'm going to come into some green. Throw that in there. Ooh, too blue. Something like that is about what I wanted. And then maybe I'm going to juice that green up there in the middle so it kind of like fades a little bit more smoothly into the light there. Gotta be kind of careful doing that. It's a lot of water in this brush. I'm gonna use the other brush. It's got too many bristles. Okay. I kind of want to wrap, well, I think I'm going to put the shadow for the light in here, but I kind of want to do that after the light's down so it doesn't look, well, and I have a pretty good idea of where I'm putting the bottom of the light, so I think I can just do that now. Okay. I think that is going to be kind of a green shadow too, sort of like these here. So same kind of dark green mix. That was way too dark. Okay. Now I'm gonna add that in. I think my light's gonna sit right about here. So the shadow's gonna kind of go off like that. Try and get some of that dark bit over here. Let it kind of bleed over that way. Got kind of a pool going on right here. So I'm gonna pick that up with a brush actually. I don't want that to create like a cloud or something. Just gonna pick up some of that water. Okay. Okay, now I'm gonna go in with some Payne's Gray, kind of charge the bottom of the shadow. And then I think I'm gonna pick up a little bit of the top of that shadow. Like so. Okay. Thinking that'll make a little more sense once there's a light there and it's not just a thing. So now I really should wait for this all to dry. But instead of doing that, I'm gonna add some like shadows. In here. Maybe there's another light over there on the other side. This is, I'm thinking this is like a street. Maybe there's another light over there that's casting a shadow in the street. So I'm going to add a little bit of green in there. Throw some kind of streaks in here. Sort of like that. All right, now I should definitely let it dry. Guess what would really be smart is if I brought a blow dryer to these. I don't own one, so that would be hard to do. Also, just think it's better to watch it sort of dry rather than blow dry it, because you can kind of fix things as it dries. For example, the top has kind of a black edge there. I don't really want that. And so I shall take it away. Okay. Well, happier with that. Still a little bit of an edge there at the top, but not too bad. So I think I kind of want to play with the gouache. So maybe what I'll do is I'll paint the whole lamp that way. Just to play with it. That might be interesting, considering I've never touched gouache in my life. That might go very badly. I think another thing I might do is add some spots kind of around here and maybe like up at the top of some stars. I've tried doing that with the Chinese white before, and they're really not opaque. So it just sort of looks like I've got some cloudy paint in the sky. So I'm hoping with the gouache it'll be more opaque and look a bit more intense. So you'll be able to get some actual contrast there, and it'll read more like stars and less like just lighter blue. And my plan to do next is going to be the tree, because the tree is where I'm going to get a very, very dark wash on. I'm going to try to paint wet on dry with that, and it's going to be just like a mix of basically alizarin crimson and black, or maybe Payne's gray, probably black though. And I'm just going to let that kind of like pool and do all sorts of things. And that's going to be like right here on the top. And then I will paint the lamp on top of it. And that'll be about as difficult to paint over as possible. So that'll be my gouache test. Because I don't really, from what I've heard of gouache, it's sort of in between acrylic and watercolor. And I don't really want to paint in between acrylic and watercolor. If I'm painting watercolor, I want it to do these crazy granulation, watercolor texture things. And when I'm doing acrylic, I just want it to be the color I put on my brush is the color that goes on the canvas. I don't want an in-between. I don't really see why you would want an in-between. But what I do want in watercolor paintings is a way to paint light on dark, which is not something you can do with regular watercolors very easily. You kind of have to paint light to dark. Did I say the other way? You can't paint lights on top of darks in watercolor very easily. So if you want to paint really bright highlights, you have to kind of leave some paper showing and paint on top of that. And that's not really how I like to paint. I mean, when I paint with oils, I put my darks in first and I move all the way to my lights, and the last thing I'm doing is highlighting things. So it's just sort of like backwards. So I'm hoping that, I'm not going to be able to totally switch that with the gouache, but maybe I'll be able to kind of be able to add some highlights retroactively. Because in the last painting I did, I definitely wanted some of that and wasn't really able to do it. I'm going to test how dry this is now. It looks pretty wet. Oh yeah, it's still pretty wet. Oh, I left some fingerprints in there. I don't know if I want to try and fix that. Yeah, I definitely don't want to try and fix that. I guess it doesn't matter. There's going to be a tree on top of that anyway. I think this is probably dry enough to add some, maybe like some fence texture in there. So maybe what I'm going to do is come in here with some black. Now maybe I'll mix a pile of black so I can control that a little better. Just going to add some sort of lines in there so it sort of looks fancy. Don't want to add too much detail in there because it's far away and not the focal point at all. And I'm also not real great at painting fences. And I think I want a little more separation here. So I'm going to add some kind of black and green back in there. Like so. And this didn't turn out quite as dark as I wanted it, so I'm going to do a little bit more work in there too. Probably just going to amp up all of these shadows here. Yeah, I think that's getting drier now. So I'm going to start mixing up some of those tree colors. And those tree colors are going to go on pretty thick. So I'm going to use quite a lot of color on there. Clean this out here. Okay. I think with this one, it's going to be mostly alizarin crimson, which I could go straight from the palette, but I just want to like look at it, see what I'm going to get. Now that I'm looking at it, I think I want it to be a little bit warmer. Maybe what I'm going to do is have it go like kind of cooler over here and then warmer over here to kind of indicate that the lights are hitting it. That's probably what I'm going to do. So I'm going to mix up some kind of different reds. That'll be kind of the main red. Okay, I'm going to clean out these other ones too. I could use these bottom pans, but kind of want a lot of color mixed up because this is going to be a pretty heavy, high paint concentration wash, I think. Don't really want any of that green in there because that's going to dull the white. I'm sorry, the red. I want it to be a pretty intense red. Try and get all that green out of there. At least as much of it as I can. Okay. I want almost like kind of a, I think the cooler color I want over here is going to be sort of like a plum color. So thinking I'm going to get that. Some of here, some of this rose, and I don't know, I think maybe just Payne's Gray would do it. Yeah. Except more Payne's Gray. Oh, just more of both actually. Yeah. That's about what I want there. Okay. And last color, I think I can just wing it and add Payne's Gray as I go. And I'm just gonna throw these two in. Okay, let's do it. You know, another thing that might be interesting, this might be like the worst idea I've ever had, but I'm gonna spritz the canvas with water and I'm gonna shield the bottom of it. I'm gonna see if that creates some interesting tree textures for me. That was just not at all what I wanted. But we're gonna go with it. I'll pick up a little bit of that water because that was way too much. I think it might add some interesting details along the edges. We're going to start in here, add this. Okay, then I'm going to kind of just put some basically straight Payne's Gray in here. Okay. Now I'm gonna get some red and put that on the other side. I don't think spritzing that was a good plan. I think that just made my life more difficult, but that's okay. That's a lot of water in there now. I'm gonna kind of let this just do what it's gonna do here. I want it to kind of get lighter as it goes to the right, but I mean, I think I can kind of do that by just layering it and just adding more paint in here. Ooh, that's orange now. I don't like that. A lot of paint on this. I didn't want it to get cooler over there, but since it's on top of the blue, that's just sort of happened. I don't know if that's really what I want or not. Okay, I need to add some more gray in here. I don't want to encourage the gray to bleed into the red a little bit. I think I should have waited longer before I done this, but it's all right. Seems like it's kind of mixing in with the layer underneath it because I added so much water too. Who knows, maybe we'll just fix this whole thing with the gouache. Really stress test it. It's got that pool of red up there. I don't know, I might have to go over that. I mean, maybe I need to throw some of the gouache in there to amp that up. I'm not too sure. 'Cause, I mean, I added that really dark blue there, and that's really killing me because this is turning kind of a purpley color when really I wanted this to be very intense red. So maybe I'll just go ahead and do that. Throw some gouache in there and just see what it does. Got some different brushes for it. See how they do. I get a pretty big one, kind of a medium-sized one, and a little detailing one. These brushes here. These came with a set I have, and I've like never used them because they seem kind of terrible for painting because they have almost no spring to them. I mean, they have a little bit of spring to them, but you know, they're not like, you know, an oil painting brush. They're more like a watercolor brush where they're very soft and they hold a lot of water. They also shed like crazy, which is great. But I've been told they're good for gouache, and I have them, and I never use them. So we're going to use them. Wash some of this palette. So I'm going to try the primary red. I'm just going to literally throw that in the wet watercolor and just see what happens. Could be a mess. Oh wow, there's a whole bunch of binder coming out of that. Just a pool of binder. I kind of got to knead these a little bit. Get some of that mixed in. Because like half of that puddle that I just put on my palette is just binder. Let me give it a mix. Wet this brush a little bit too. It's nice and creamy. I like the texture of that paint. It's actually not really the color that I want. I might try and mix it a little bit. I don't know. I'm going to throw it in there, just see kind of what it do. So it's a little bit pinker than I wanted it. But it's definitely opaque, or at least it looks opaque right now. Which is kind of nice. Just kind of throwing it in there, playing around, because I have no idea how to use gouache. That's way pinker than I wanted it to be. I guess that could be just because it's picking up other things too. It's picking up some of the Payne's gray and some of the underneath color. It's got some kind of crazy swirly things going around. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but there's like, I put so much paint on there that some of it's sort of sticking out. Kind of wonder if it'll stay like that. So that would be kind of neat. Part of me wants to add some orange in this section here, but I might just stick with the cool theme of this painting and then make the white, or sorry, the light that I add right here, I'm going to make it sort of a white light instead of, I was planning on that being sort of a warm light and then casting some light down here so that warm light would kind of contrast this sort of pale green. But now, I mean, everything's sort of got a blue, cold kind of tint to it. So maybe I'll stick with that and make the light white. And then I'll leave the bottom alone. I have no idea how long this here is going to take to dry. Could be forever. So maybe what I'll do while I wait is paint the bottom of this. No. I'm gonna paint the branches for the tree. Those I'm just gonna do some black gouache to see how that looks. There's a lot of paint left on that brush. I don't want to waste that really. Some of that in there. Some of my crazy things going on up there. Not really sure what's going on. I like it though. Another paper towel. Clean up my other brush here. Okay, so I think this tree, actually what I'm going to do, I wanted it to sort of be, this is just sort of a little bit of the tree and then it's kind of coming off screen. Whoa, some red in that brush. Contaminated my green water, or my clear water. It's a shame. I think I'm just going to add some more of this over in here to fix that. Killing some of the sky holes I made because I kind of like the sky holes, but it looks very square looking over here now. We need to add some darks up there. Definitely some darks over in here. Really should have been a little more thoughtful about the way I put that tree in. So now it sort of looks like, oh, maybe this tree is just much bigger. Yeah, maybe this is the top of the tree. Because I was thinking like this would be just a branch, but I'm thinking it's going to be sort of one of those clover shaped trees where, you know, it's got maybe this, it's maybe this big and you're just seeing a little bit of it. So I'm thinking the trunk's got to be pretty thick. I think what I'm going to do for the trunk is just make it black. So that's easy. Just gonna go, I'm gonna kill some of my fence, but it's okay. Yeah, that doesn't look too unnatural. I need to make that into a branch. Okay, not unhappy with that. It doesn't need a shadow because there's going to be a lamp post right here, so the shadow would be back in that direction. And I don't like how like trapezoidal that is. Maybe I'm going to try and, oh, I don't know. think that improved it a bit. I'm going to leave that. It's got sort of a fresh look to it, like I did it in one try. Yeah, I'm not touching it. Shouldn't touch it. Be a bad plan. It seems like it's kind of stuck on there though, so I really want to do something. So I think I'm going to just add like a little bit of a shadow looking thing like that way. I don't know. That might have done damage. Pick some of that out. I don't know. Stop touching it. Just as soon as I stop touching it. This is still like super wet, so I don't want to play around with that at all. Because I'm okay with it for the most part. I do want some more like black in here. So I might just throw some of that in. Maybe I'll throw in some black gouache just because playing with gouache. I'm going to need this one first before I open it. Because the last one was all binder at the top. I don't know if that's binder or filler actually, since these are student paint, so maybe that's just maybe that's just the filler. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on paints, especially not watercolor paints. Okay. This is like kind of a gray look to it, so I'm kind of, doesn't seem like it's actually going to be black. Yeah, one's all filler too. Or binder, whatever it is. I definitely squeezed out way too much out of that red tube, so a little more conservative on the black pour. I'm just gonna add some bits in here. Okay, that is like super opaque. That is not what I was expecting. I don't know, can I like add some, I don't know, some questionable choices I've just made. But I'm just mostly experimenting with this one, so maybe this will be informative to someone too. I didn't know what gouache was like 2 weeks ago. Didn't know it was a thing. Now I do. It's definitely useful. So far, I mean, I don't know how that's gonna look when it dries, but I added some opaqueness right off the bat there. You know, that needs to be brought down into this tree. Okay. You know what this might turn into? This could turn into one of those like kind of cherry blossom trees with some white, dots or something on it. Be kind of interesting too. Might try that. I actually like this brush too. It's kind of nice for this. Because, I mean, it seems like it's like halfway in between a watercolor brush and like a hog hair bristle brush or something like that. So I'm actually enjoying using it more than I thought I would. So I thought it would be too floppy, but for the gouache, it's actually quite nice. So now I need to do something while this is drying. Otherwise, I'll be bored. So this is looking a little bit empty down here. I could work a little bit more on this fence because I covered up some of the fence texture. And I was going to let that fence kind of blend into the back. There's going to be a lamp here. So I want this to be pretty distant and kind of faded, which it is. So I'm okay with that. Maybe what I'll do is add like a pine looking tree back in here. Kind of think that would be nice. Maybe we'll do that. But do we do it with gouache? No, I'm not doing it with gouache. It's too much work. I'm going to make a plain old regular watercolor pine tree. I actually don't know if I've ever painted a pine tree with watercolor, so this will be an adventure. I think it's going to be sort of a gray blue, similar color to this, but more I don't know, we're going to find out. I want it to be sort of distant looking. I want it to be farther back than this fence, so I don't want it to be the same color. So the question is, do I make it more blue for atmospheric perspective, or do I make it more gray? I don't know, maybe what we'll do is we'll just start with like a really light glaze of just Payne's gray, and then layer it. Yeah, it's like way too light. I'm never going to be able to see that. Well, now I've gotten quite a lot on there. Okay. So okay, that's actually pretty close to what I wanted. Add a little bit. Maybe like there's a closer one right in there. I don't know. I don't know if that reads like 1 or 2. Definitely reads like there's shadows on the left side of it, I think. Reads like one tree. Okay with that. I think I'm going to also add a person kind of standing in the road over here. You also know I'm very bad at painting people, so this will be an adventure. I'm going to give him sort of an oval shape. And it looks like a guy with a jacket on to me. Wish I painted him higher up so I could use this as his shadow. But it looks like he's gonna need... I also got the scale way wrong, because this tree must be enormous. So maybe I need to do something about that too. And I think it's too late to get rid of him. What can that turn into? It's dangerous me waiting for this paint to dry without any ideas. It's dangerous. But I've created a nice problem to solve. Maybe I try to scrub him out. See what happens. It's not ideal, but I think he's gonna come out. There he goes. Still kind of there. You can sort of see the outline of him. Maybe I'll give him another try. So this is the tree, so he needs to be pretty tall. So maybe I need to paint like a really distant looking person. Maybe like it looks like they're way down the street or something. Maybe a couple people. Maybe they're way out there. It definitely wouldn't be that black though. Oh, and I took them right off. This time I'll add them a little less paint. There's a guy. There's a gal. Looks like there's something else going on back there too. Don't know quite what. This is still like super wet. It's trying pretty close to the way I put it down, though. Like, this bit's pretty dry, and it's definitely lighter than it was. But maybe if I add another layer, it'll be pretty close to what I want. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start the bottom of the lamppost. Not great at painting lampposts either. But we're going to do it. So I'm going to try it just with watercolor first. See what I can do with watercolor here and what I can't. It's going to be pretty dark anyway. It's going to be mostly like kind of a blue-gray color, similar to this color. But I'm going to add some kind of black outlines to make it stand out. Okay, that's about what I want. So maybe I'll add like a tiny sketch to this before I go crazy. So add a line here and add a line here. Add a line here. You definitely can't see that on camera. I'm trying to get these very, very light. I think actually that needs to be smaller. I'm going to paint like here, 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 and up. Okay. I'm going to go for it. There's that box. Okay. Throw some of this in here. This thing's going to be 12 kinds of crooked, I think. Must be bold. So if I paint 100 of these, one of them will definitely turn out okay. I'll tell you, the last lamppost I painted did not turn out okay. This guy will. Maybe. Okay, so this is like the bright side of the post, and I'm going to add the lamp up here once this is dry, because it is not. It's actually getting there. It's got some really wet spots up in here, but right over here is perfectly dry. Over here is dry. So I'm just waiting on like right here, which is like conveniently right where I want to put the lamp. So what I'm going to do is strengthen this a little bit. Well, I'm going to try and get a little bit more blue. A little bit whiter to the middle of it. Because it's going to go basically from this color straight to white because I'm going to highlight it with the gouache. So I'm going to give it kind of like that sort of color. Actually, this whole bit is going to be white. Go ahead and get that all the way up in there. Okay. That ain't too bad. I'm going to add a little bit more of that dark color in there. Kind of wish I had mixed a new one so that there's not white in there. The white's on that side, so I can kind of work around it. Whoa, that's a lot of blue. Okay. Okay. It's not looking too ugly yet. We'll get there. Now I think I'm going to add a much lighter blue on this side that's a little bit green. Ooh, that's a lot of white. A bit more green. Okay. Throw that in there. Let's do green. Fill that with some cerulean blue. Trying to leave some spaces where I can add some highlights with the gouache with a little bit more ease. Come back into this color. Okay, now I want to darken the other bits of that lamppost, so I'm going to just basically go into some straight up black. Give it that kind of crisp outline. Get that shadow a little bit poppier. Some dry brushiness. Okay. I'm going to add more shadow here. Okay. I'm going to try and lift some highlights out of there. So like right here. Right here. I think I'm going to come in with the gouache and try some of that too. I think I've got my perspective a little bit messed up too. I'm gonna try and, I don't know if I can fix it now. Maybe I'll just do that. That way you can't tell there's a hard line there. Okay. It's not too bad. I think I'm gonna add a little more black. Add some black here. I'm going to add some of that. The back edge there. Add a little bit of that there. Try to come down as close as I can to the edge of this. And add a black line in there. That was way thicker than I wanted it to be. Maybe I'll be able to get some of that out. Well, that's all of it, but that's better than nothing. Doesn't even matter up there because there's not a lot of contrast. Okay, I'm gonna try that again with a liner. So I just want to add like kind of a black outline there on the very edge of it. Okay. And it looks a little bit skinny right here, but there's going to be a lot of white on that side of it when I add the gouache. Maybe I'll add like a plant or something there to hide the fact that my perspective is all kinds of questionable. Okay, this is looking pretty dry now. And it actually dried about the colors that I wanted. So, I mean, it's still cooler than I wanted originally, but this red is pretty intense. I was thinking I was going to have to add another layer on top of that, but I really don't think I need to. Also, whatever happened up here, some watercolor things happened over here that I really like. Okay, I think it's time to paint this bit. And I think, so I could try mixing up the color that I want, or I could go straight and just do a straight white and then do a backing, where basically I just paint behind it. And that gives me, you know, a white to paint on top of. I can glaze a color on top of the white. That's definitely trickier. I'm going to have to be mixing colors anyway, because I want to paint this color on top, and it's going to be, well, I mean, it's got some China white in there, so maybe we'll try to do, let's try to get the outline of it just with regular black. This is just basically straight paint. I think it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be like a little trim piece up there. Then we're going to get the bottom of the lamp, which is maybe a tiny bit wider than the trim piece. And I want it to kind of fan out a little bit. How big to make it is the question. I think maybe the lamp will be like this big. Seems a little skinny to me. Yeah, I actually think this is the center line. That's the center. That's the side. I think this needs to be more like that. And then the top can be just sort of black. And then a black topper. And then I'm going to add this color up there. We're going to try doing that just with watercolor first. See how well that goes. I think I'm going to do that with the liner too. Definitely a lot of Chinese white in this mix. So Chinese white and this kind of blue. It's going to have to be pretty heavy paint. Okay. That worked out better than I thought it would. Okay. Let's get that paint off of that brush. Now, it's going to be interesting painting the light. I think I'm just going to try and mix the color I want with the gouache and just see what happens. I don't know how to mix gouache. I'm just going to pretend it's acrylic and do that. So I want like the teeniest, tiniest bit of a warm yellow. And so my choices for warm yellow are primary yellow and medium yellow. This one's definitely looking like more a lemon yellow, kind of a cooler one. This one's definitely looking a little warmer, so I'm going to pick medium yellow. I don't know anything about these colors, so I don't really know. This might be like a yellow ochre or something and exactly not what I want. We're going to find out though. Because I want like a really, just a warm white. That's all I'm looking for. And the white I've got is just opaque white. That's what I got. I've heard that the student grade white is not as opaque as the professional grade white, so this will be a good test to see if maybe all I purchase is just a tube of decent white. Because I mean, really, that's mostly what I want. Is I want to be able to put like just little white sparkles on things. If I want to do stars, or I got that right out of camera. I just want to be able to paint little white highlights on things. It's really, I don't really want to become a gouache aficionado. Got 3 mediums going already. Maybe I'll add gouache in at some point, but not right now. The yellow is looking like the color that I want. It looks a little bit like a cadmium yellow or something like that. I'm gonna use a smaller kind of brush. Like I said, I'm just gonna pretend it's acrylic. It's too warm. It's working out exactly the way I want it to. Okay. Get all the white in there. Added way too much yellow. All right. Now this is the scary bit. Okay. One down, one to go. This brush is too big. Some more paint in there. I love that color though. It's a really nice color. And I think I'm going to fix my outlines. I'm going to add some black gouache. But that, it's not too bad. It's not great. Should stop touching it since I'm happy with it, but touching it anyway. Just trying to get that line down the middle a little bit more straight. It seemed to look crooked to me. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I mean, for watercolor, that's opaque. I don't know. I don't really think the student grade gouache is too bad. It's definitely pretty cheap. I mean, it was $20 for pretty much every color you would ever want. And showing those again. The only colors I would probably really use would be the opaque white, the primary yellow, or the medium yellow. I think the medium yellow actually, well, maybe actually the primary yellow, because this is a kind of more of a cadmium looking red, not an alizarin crimson looking red. And then this ultramarine, I assume, is ultramarine blue. So I would use, I wish it had burnt umber. Maybe if I'd had burnt umber, I would be a little bit happier. But with the red, a yellow, a white, a blue, that's pretty much what you want. That's all you really need. And I guess you could just mix a big pile of brown with some of the, the three of these, the ultramarine and the red and one of these two yellows, probably the medium yellow. You can make a pretty good brown with those. So, I don't regret the purchase at all. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some kind of sparkle on this guy here. I'm going to do that. I might just use same color. Actually, I want a different brush. So this brush is too big. I want a smaller one. Let's see if I have a smaller brush. I'm not sure I do. Let's see. Oh, I don't. That's my smallest brush. Wow, interesting. I guess maybe I'll just use a synthetic instead. I guess I'll use like a liner. Just use my liner. It's all watercolor. I don't know why I'm being weird about that. Just gonna add just a little bit in there. Okay, that was too much right off the bat. Okay. Fix that later. Trying to dry brush some sparkly bits on there. Need more of that. I don't know if I have enough paint to finish this. Actually, I'm pretty confident I don't. I'm gonna have to mix more. I don't like that bit at all. I want to like take that out. Come out of there. Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that. My gosh, squash is getting all over my hands. Watercolor definitely doesn't do that. You know, do if you stick your hand in it, but usually doesn't get on me like that. Okay, so now I want to add some of that in here too, but I need more, which means more white. Not a whole lot, because I'm about done here. Add just a touch of yellow in there. Not too much. Just a touch. That was not a touch. Oh, I've made a mess now. Too much yellow. I have to use some more. It's better. This is a lot. I want it to be that thick. I think I'm going to try and water it down just a tiny bit. Maybe I should just water down the pile I had. Because this, I'm basically just going to like, you know, well, maybe a little more. Okay, all right. Add a little bit in this corner. Okay. I'll try and fix the bottom of that because the perspective was a little off on it. I kind of like this painting though. I really like how it's sort of purple and then it's got that yellow here. It's sort of, you know, it's a cool yellow, but it's still a yellow. That really is bringing out that purple quite nicely. Quite nicely. I also just love this color. I mean, that's just one of my favorite colors. It's like, it's a little bit of cerulean blue and a little bit of like phthalo blue. Sorry, phthalo green. And a little bit of Payne's gray. It makes that like really dark blue-green. That's a nice color. Okay. I think I'm gonna try and add some more black in here. Fix these like that. That bit there. Okay. And I'm gonna try. This is real dangerous business up here. I'm just gonna try and outline. Ah, there she goes. Okay. It's the most detail I ever put in a painting, I'm telling you. I usually like to keep them very abstract and not detailed. And not that this is a detailed painting by any stretch, but for what I usually do, this is definitely a little out of my comfort zone. There's no question there. I'm going to try to add a little bit more interesting bits in there. I'm trying to add a little bit of like a kind of a milky blue-green in there. But of course, this is watercolor, so that's not going to show up. I forgot that I'm doing that. The gouache had me all excited. I guess I could mix that color in gouache, but I don't really care to. You know what might be interesting is if I try and just, like, I know that watercolor and gouache will mix, so if I like wet that area in there, that's too much water. Okay, that was a mistake. If I just wet that area in there with not a gallon of water, and I add just a little bit of white gouache in there, if I can mix the white into it, lighten it up. It's an experiment. I don't know if it's going to work or not. Kind of looks like it is. And what I could really do is just pull the color out that way. Just lift it out by sucking the paint, sucking the water out of it. If you add some water and then put a dry brush on it, it'll kind of pull the paint and water out of the canvas, which will add some kind of light spots. I want to do the same sort of thing in here, add kind of a white spot in there. I think I'm just going to do that the vanilla watercolor way. Like that. And I want to pronounce that corner here a little more. All right. I don't know. I might call this one done. I really like it. I mean, the one thing that's not great about it is it's kind of got some banana shape to it. It's a little curved because I'm not perfect at drawing straight lines. But who is? Now, part of me wants to try adding some sky holes in here. But that part of me is losing because I like the painting and I don't really want to touch it. I think it's done. I'm gonna pull highlight out of here. I'm gonna add a little bit of kind of shadowy bits in here. Crisp that up. This is the bit that's in the shadow. Maybe some like grass kind of looking things over here. And with that, I think we're going to call it. Say that's finished. A little bit of a close-up. Definitely this part is not perfect. But I think from a distance, you won't really notice how sort of blocky it looks because the perspective is not quite right. The top, let me get a brush so I can actually point. This isn't quite, I think it needs to be a little bit angled because it looks like we're kind of looking at this angle, but this is straight, which kind of implies that we're looking at it straight on. But really, whoever is looking at this light, it's not quite right. This needs to be angled that way, I think. I could try and fix that, but I don't want to. So one thing I do see now that it's in my face is I want to add that there. This looks really dark right now, but it'll get lighter. I'm gonna stop touching it now. I'm gonna call that done. One last close up, and then I'll close the stream out.